long. I mean,
All right, everyone, we are live. Good morning. Welcome to today's City Council workshop. This is our monthly in-depth workshop where we get to get some presentations, discuss items that will be coming up on future agendas, and get some reports from staff. And also, we will have an executive session today. We welcome you. We do ask if you would please silence your cell phones. And we will jump right into our agenda for today. And first up is Mr. Jimmy Gray from the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce. He's going to give us an update on the One Flight Myrtle Beach Classic.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council, staff. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to be with you today. It is a busy week in Myrtle Beach. A lot of exciting things happening, and I think it's fitting that this is actually National Travel and Tourism Week in the United States of America. So the governor did a proclamation proclaiming it as the State Travel and Tourism Week, but it is also National Travel and Tourism Week. Travel and tourism in the Myrtle Beach area accounts for 82,000 jobs for the hospitality industry that it directly or indirectly impacts. And we just got back some research showing that over 18 million visitors came to the Myrtle Beach area last year. So we're celebrating the power of travel and the power of tourism and how it really works to improve the quality of life for us residents here, and reminding folks about all the benefits of tourism. Fitting as well, I heard some chatter about Wheel of Fortune. Fitting that it is also Beach Week on Wheel of Fortune. I don't know if there's any wheel watchers here, but if you watched last night at 7 o'clock, it was basically a 30-minute commercial for Myrtle Beach on Wheel of Fortune. It was really fantastic. Ryan Seacrest and Vanna White came to Myrtle Beach a couple months ago and shot some of the footage, and it really shows their excitement about our community. And I think some folks are winning some trips here to Myrtle Beach as a part of the vacation packages. So with that, I'll get started on why you actually invited me here to come talk about. It's the One Flight Myrtle Beach Classic. Will be played this week. It starts tomorrow, Wednesday, May 7th, with the Pro-Am, the Celebrity Pro-Am. And the professionals are going to be teeing it up in the competition starting on Thursday, May 8th, until a champion is crowned on Sunday, May 11th. All of these events are taking place at the Dunes Golf and Beach Club. Want to thank all the members and the staff there for essentially turning over their club for 2 weeks to the PGA, where members essentially all lose access and give the keys to the club over to the PGA Tour, because they are running the show over there now, and it really looks fantastic. So you noticed that last year was the first year of the Myrtle Beach Classic, and we've added a new co-title sponsor this year, One Flight. One Flight International, fantastic partners. The CEO and founder, Farron Rajput, came here to City Council a couple of months ago. He arrived yesterday. Just a wonderful partner to work with. It's really going to work to elevate our brand as a destination. And really, you can see when we get to the Celebrity Pro-Am, we're really bringing in some impressive names to our community and elevating Myrtle Beach's brand nationally and internationally. So really excited about that. Before I go any further, I want to remind you all and the public that tickets are still on sale at myrtlebeachclassic.com. Last year shattered expectations in terms of attendance. I encourage folks, if you're thinking about going, that looks like it might be fun, buy your tickets now. I think we got really close to sellouts last year if we didn't reach a sellout on Saturday. I encourage you to go to myrtlebeachclassic.com and purchase your tickets today, because we shattered expectations in terms of attendance last year and fully on pace to do that again this year. Last year, the economic impact of this tournament exceeded $15 million in terms of local economic impact for a golf tournament in its first year, hoping to exceed that again this year. The tournament, the impact is beyond an economic impact. It's also reaching into some important local charities. There are 9 local charities that the One Flight Myrtle Beach Classic is partnering with this year. It's the same charities as last year. So you have the Blue Star Mothers of Coastal Carolina, Boys and Girls Clubs of the Grand Strand, Champions Autism Network, Children's Recovery Center, Classy Smiles, Help for Kids, Helping Hand of Myrtle Beach, Project Golf, and SOS Care. All of these charities have a 501c3 status, meaning that they're nonprofit, tax-exempt groups with a dedicated mission. So let's get to kind of the rundown of what this week is going to look like. So tomorrow is going to be a really exciting day. over at the golf course. And as a reminder, you can purchase tickets tomorrow for the Pro-Am. Tickets are on sale at myrtlebeachclassic.com. And tomorrow will be the Celebrity Pro-Am. Some of the named celebrities that will be participating include Kevin Costner, Kurt Russell, David Arquette, Candace King, Michael Pena, Rob Riggle, Nick Swisher, and North Myrtle Beach's own Vanna White will all be teeing it up. That's just to name a few. There are a couple dozen celebrities that are descending on Myrtle Beach today and tomorrow to participate and really enjoy our beautiful community. And they're doing more than just golfing while they're here. They're going and eating at some restaurants and exploring the wonderful retailers that our community has to offer. We'll also be joined by the governor tomorrow afternoon for a little opening ceremony over at the golf course. So Governor McMaster and Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evett will be here in town to celebrate the success of this second year One Flight Myrtle Beach Classic. On Thursday, the actual business begins, play starts. This year's field includes 132 players. You have 2 of the players that have won a major championship in the past, it's been the past 10 years, I believe. Webb Simpson has won a major event on the PGA Tour, as well as Francesco Molinari. Some of the other big names that you see in this year's field include Brant Snedeker, Lucas Glover, Jonathan Bird, as well as last year's champion Chris Gotterup, who will be in town to defend his title. On Friday, play will continue, and we're also going to have on Friday evening. Let's go back to Thursday. On Thursday evening, there's going to be entertainment from Chairman of the Board. Some good music out on the 17th, in between the 17th and 18th holes. So some exciting entertainment options for families on Thursday night. Friday, play will continue, as well as Friday evening, you're going to have a shag dance competition out in that same area in between 17 and 18. Saturday is really when the weekend starts, is when you see that cut line. So the folks that haven't played as well have to go home, or they get to go kick their feet up on the beach while the folks that are playing well get to continue playing. And Saturday is really going to be a fantastic showing in terms of attendance, we expect. And then in the evening, we have some exciting entertainment happening on Saturday evening. Tyler Hubbard is going to be performing. If you haven't heard of Tyler Hubbard, surely you've heard of the band Florida Georgia Line. I believe he is Georgia from Florida Georgia Line. So encourage you to come on out for that concert on Saturday night once the golf ends on Saturday night. Your ticket for Saturday gets you into the concert as well. So you just stick around for the concert on Saturday night.
Are tickets still available, Jimmy?
Tickets are available at myrtlebeachclassic.com. Thank you. I will get to that about 3 or 4 more times in the rest of this presentation. But thank you. I'll check my tally there. Sunday, most importantly, Sunday is Mother's Day. That is the most important thing. Sunday is Mother's Day. Don't forget it. And play will also continue on Sunday as well, secondarily. But Sunday is Mother's Day, and then a champion will be crowned at the One Flight Myrtle Beach Classic on Sunday evening. This year, the tournament will be broadcast internationally on the Golf Channel. So it's going to be in over 200 million households around the world with over 8 hours of live coverage from Thursday to Sunday. The television times are going to be from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on Thursday and Friday, and then from 3 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday on the Golf Channel. So 8 hours of, we talked about the essentially 30-minute commercial on Beach Week on Wheel of Fortune. That will be an 8-hour commercial for the Myrtle Beach area, broadcast internationally into 200 million households this upcoming weekend. So that it's just really going to showcase our community to folks around the world. Everybody's favorite question, parking. So parking will be similar this year as it was last year. So all general public parking is $20 per day. It's going to be located at 2400 North Oak Street, right across from the convention center. Spectators are welcome there. You can park there Wednesday through Sunday. Gates will open at 6:30 a.m. And will close. Well, it'll end at 7 p.m. At 7 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday is when the gates will open. So just a half hour later. And there are shuttles that take you from that parking lot there over to the Dunes Golf and Beach Club. And they did a really great job with the shuttles last year. When you go to these golf tournaments, oftentimes the number one complaint that you hear from folks is over the parking shuttles and having to wait a long time. That was not the case this past year. So credit to the One Flight Myrtle Beach Classic team and the logistics folks behind this that kind of nailed down the parking and the shuttles. So tickets, again, are on sale at myrtlebeachclassic.com. Children age 15 and younger will be admitted free of charge when they're accompanied by a paying adult. The One Flight Myrtle Beach Classic will honor those in the military, both active, retired, and reserve, and our local first responders by offering 2 free tickets for tomorrow for Wednesday's Pro-Am and practice round on May 7th. And then you can also purchase 2 tickets if you fit one of those criteria for any day, Thursday through Sunday, at a discount. Once you're on the grounds, if you are military, active, retired, or reserved, you can, or a first responder, active or retired, you're welcome to enjoy hospitality and a place to rest at the Patriots Outpost, which is going to be located to the left of the 10th green. So encourage folks to get there. Just show a military ticket or a military service identification. That outpost is going to be presented by Monarch Roofing with supporting sponsorships from CRG Homes and US Foods. That's new this year, and that, along with what happens with Project Golf, really showing appreciation and support for first responders as well as folks that have served our country. With that, before I open it up for questions, if you're interested in purchasing tickets, please go to myrtlebeachclassic.com if you'd like to attend. Are there any questions?
Any questions? What time did you need me to show up tomorrow morning?
You need a lot of practice. So,
Not to play. You said that I could drive Kevin Costner in his golf cart.
okay. So we'll find out soon. He doesn't drive a golf cart. He drives one of those Dodge Ram pickup trucks from Yellowstone. So he'll be driving that around the golf course.
Just let me know what time I need to be there.
Sounds good. Thank you all. See you out there.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Busy week. And we'll move on to the Pine Island PUD discussion.
We had this on for first reading a couple of meetings ago. There were some questions about sort of typology of signs and where the placement was going to be, and I think the applicant's gone back and done a little bit more, developed a little bit more detail about that. So just going to turn it over to Jessica to talk through that.
Good morning, Mayor and members of council. Thank you for having me this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to explain a little bit more about our signage amendment requests. I put together a really short presentation just to kind of refresh you on the Pine Island PUD, give some information. So the PUD itself is about 39 acres. You may recall 2 years ago, we came before you and amended it to include an additional 5 acres. So we almost take up the entire area between Seaboard Street, Pine Island, and Grissom Parkway. There's a little triangle down at the intersection of Grissom and Pine Island that the PUD does not encompass, but otherwise we have that whole area. The allowed uses include retail, commercial, multifamily, and it has been an existing PUD. I have copies of 2016, 2018, 2022, and I believe, and staff could correct me if it's 2006, I believe is the original date on the PUD. So it's been around for a while. I wanted to kind of refresh you guys on the architecture that is already in the existing PUD. The Grove is the existing multifamily building that's located out there. It's on track 1, so it's on the west side of the PUD. And it's kind of a 4-story, low country feel, some soft colors. Retail building B, which was just recently completed in 2024, is on track 3. It's on the same side as that Grove multifamily. It's single story. The developer has some existing tenants in that building. And then we are working with him to develop retail building C, which would be flanking the entry drive into the Grove. In a similar fashion. So he is very vested in finding tenants and developing this PUD, thus prompting the need for a sign. The other project that we have currently going in the PUD is Proximity Coastal Grand. It was approved by CAB. It has not yet moved forward, but I included an elevation of kind of the architectural context there as well. So it'll be a 4-story multifamily building. And that will be located in that additional 5-acre piece that's kind of southeast of the PUD. The only existing sign out on the PUD right now is for the Grove. I was not involved in the permitting of that, but you can see that The style kind of fits the context of the architecture in the PUD, and it is located at the entrance into the Grove between what will be Retail C and Retail B. So it's on Sea Pine Boulevard. I also wanted to point out that the mall is located to the north side. It's on the other side of Seaboard Street. Seaboard Street is a 120-foot right-of-way. It's a divided median, so it's a pretty extensive road right there. Sea Pine Boulevard itself is 80-foot right-of-way. It's also divided, even though it's a private right-of-way. It kind of acts as a public right-of-way. And then Grissom Parkway to the south is also a 100-foot. The right-of-way varies there, but it's 100 feet-ish, right where Sea Pine meets it. And it's also a divided median highway or road. And I point this out to you because I realize that this is not a PUD that's, on 17 bypass, but it is in a commercial area of the city. It does have roads that in the future, especially with the mall and all the out parcels there, will have a lot of like retail commercial activity, a lot of people kind of driving up and down. Walmart and Home Depot are actually just up Seaboard Street as well, so thus playing into the commercial area of the PUD. Now kind of launching into our request today. The existing PUD includes language for primary, secondary, and directional signage. It does, with the 2022 amendment, does not clarify what primary, secondary, and directional signage is. So again, with the development of the buildings on the PUD, the owner or the developer was like, well, hey, we need signs. So we went to get a sign permit, and staff asked for clarification on what a primary, secondary, directional sign is. So thus, we are here before you today to clarify that. We've worked extensively with staff to kind of come up with the best way to modify the PUD. So currently, the PUD allows for 2 primary signs, so one at either intersection of Sea Pine Boulevard with Seaboard Street and Grissom Parkway. So those primary signs were not defined. Keep in mind whether they had advertisement or whether they were just signs. 5 secondary signs and 10 directional signs. The existing PUD also includes a site plan and images, which are used to suggest the sign locations and designs. So I can see from staff's perspective, they're like, okay, well, here's a primary sign, here's where it's located, but it doesn't say that in the text, and what does it look like? It's kind of a plus or minus thing. So with our proposed PUD amendment, so we've eliminated the secondary and directional signage. So we've made it more clear for staff to enforce signage in general by using the generic ordinance language for signage. Then we are asking to preserve one of the primary signs, which we have defined within the language, which is the red part on page, it's perpendicular signs D, so 1 primary sign per the PUD. So in that, we've used the same language as the perpendicular signs, so the 25-foot height, the 150-foot square feet per sign face, and then the copy on that sign could be any tenant within the PUD with the exception of the out parcels along Seaboard Street. So we want to reinforce the fact that we're not asking for double signage for anything on Seaboard Street. We're simply asking for some advertisement for the tenants that are within, so like that Retail B, Retail C, that sort of area within the PUD on that primary sign. We have removed one of the primary signs that's on Grissom Parkway out of respect for, I believe there's a PUD that just came in recently that has some residential components. So we realized that Seaboard Street is the more commercial, the more, there's gonna be shops and people and retail opportunities. So we've removed the primary sign from Grissom Parkway to respect the fact that there might be a residential development there. We also, pardon me, I can't remember if I said this part, sorry. So we've removed the site plan and the images as well. We've removed those 2 exhibits so that the locations will be as allowed per the language, per the standard language for signage. And then the design of the signs would be as approved by CAB. Again, we can't show pictures of the designs and then have CAB say, hey, you know, that's not acceptable or whatnot. That's the job of CAB to approve what the sign looks like. And then this last slide up here is just some examples. I wanted to stress on the left-hand side, that's not exactly what the sign would look like. We don't have the sign design per se, but I want to stress that each of the signs on the left takes into account the architectural context of the development that it represents. So going back to the architecture slide, the Pine Island PUD, the low country feel, the quality materials, maybe some brick accents. So the sign that we are asking for throughout the PUD would reflect the architectural context of that PUD. And then on the right-hand side, some of probably y'all's favorite old signs where you just have the blaring, tall, you know, advertisement. That's not what we're looking for. And I think with that, I've covered everything if you guys have any questions.
Any questions from council?
I would say the sign that I was thinking about when we discussed it was that first one on the right side, the forest crossing sign.
Yeah,
And I'm happy to see that that is unacceptable.
yeah, I don't
Based
think
on-
CAB
it's
would accept that
unacceptable to me.
anyways.
So that's really all I needed somebody to say last time was that sign would not be allowed.
Appreciate
And
it.
it's going through CAB too, so.
Yes, sir.
Well, and I think it's important when we say we're business friendly, we need to allow those businesses to be seen by the public and
Yes,
tell
ma'am.
people how to get there.
I just
and-
don't think you can see the businesses in that sign, they've got them so small.
And I think once the area gets built up as well, and that's, again, why the architecture comes into play, you know, 4-story buildings. So right now, you drive down Seapine, you kind of look in, you're like, oh, I can see everything. Well, you know, hopefully 5, 10, 20 years down the road, when it's all built up, all those businesses that are in the center of the PUD won't be able to see by the public right away. So therefore, a primary sign kind of helps bring attraction and direction to them.
I think that's a good model for any future PUDs that might happen too.
All right.
Since there's no comment, we'll put this on for second reading next Tuesday.
Very good.
Okay,
All
thank you
right,
very much.
Thank you. Okay, and next we'll have our discussion on our budget retreat follow-up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We'll just dive right in for the fun. So I want to start off by bringing up the proposed budget at retreat. You'll see that the total operating budget was 7% increase at the time, and the overall grand total appropriations was 9.4%. We came to you at budget retreat with a balanced budget, and we are coming to you now with a balanced budget. There have been a few changes since retreat. General government operating budget has increased 0.2%, or about $533,000. The capital projects have decreased by 2.7%, and the overall budget reduced from an increase of 9.4% to 9.2%. I'm just going to go over the recommended revenue budget highlights. We have no proposed tax increase, no proposed rate increase for the Myrtle Beach Convention Center, no proposed business license increases, proposed minor adjustments of building permit fee schedule. If you'll recall, that was really to bring more balance into the business license fee schedule. We've got a proposed increase in solid waste fees and charges that goes back to the rate study that we had a couple of years ago. And it's about a 3.5% increase, or $1.04 a month on a resident. We've got proposed increase in water and sewer rates, 9% each. And that for a residential customer would be about a $5.76 a month charge. And much like the solid waste study, we had a rate study done to actually help craft those rates to meet our needs for both operating and capital. And then finally, we have a proposed stormwater fee increase, 22%, based on the 2021 rate study. The residential impact on that will be about $3.04 a month. So The total of those combined would be about an additional $9.84 a month that a resident would see increase on their water bill. With that being said, I think it's always important to talk about our millage and where we sort of land with a number of comparable communities. Here, first off, you'll see that just on straight millage alone, the city of Myrtle Beach is ranked number 21, quite low on the list. But when you factor in the tourism development fee, we really fall to the bottom. And we have factored in any local option sales taxes or other tax reducing mechanisms in these other jurisdictions when we look at this, not just for the city of Myrtle Beach. So even when we apply those other credit mechanisms in the other communities, we still fall to the bottom as far as tax millage in these comparable communities. So what precipitated the change in our overall proposed budget? I've got a fairly extensive detail here, so I'll just sort of hit the highlights. When we are looking at the governmental operations budget, and the governmental operations budget really is the public service side of our budget. That is our infrastructure, our policing, our recreation centers, our stormwater, those things that you find your government normally charged with doing and are paid for with fees and charges, taxpayer dollars, and that sort of thing. Those charges went, or that budget went up about $532,000. That's a result of a health insurance increase to offset higher claim costs. I'll talk about that a little bit more in one of the next slides. We had some software increases of about, a little over $30,000. Some of those came in after we had already put the budget together. Some increase in janitorial cost for the housing authority rent, and then the special events budget actually went down, offsetting that overall cost because apparently there's a fall concert that will not be taking place. In general capital improvements, that budget actually went down as well. There's one oceanfront project that has been postponed for more research, so we've pushed that project out. In the enterprise capital projects, you'll see that goes down $1.4 million, and that is due to the Northwoods pump station being pushed out later in the plan. The development and everything that was going to occur in that area has taken more time to develop and needed to be pushed out a little further. And finally, with regard to transfers, because we had additional property tax money coming in when we got the new values from the county, we were able to reduce the transfer to the debt service fund to offset those debt service costs by about $180,000. And because we pushed out the one project in the Oceanfront Development Fund, we were able to reduce that transfer from the hospitality tax by about $360,000. And altogether, those make up the total change in the appropriations, the $688,000 that gave us that 0.2% savings in the grand total appropriations for the year, compared to budget retreat at least. Now, we did have a couple of changes that were structural and really more for efficiency that had absolutely no financial impact. We have moved 2 meter readers from the Public Service Utility Fund into our revenue billing office. Now, that's where you traditionally see those positions, and it also adds for, quicker response time. Rather than having to communicate from one department to another to get something done, those meter readers work right in the same department. They can go out and turn the meters on and off, and the communication is more direct, so we'll have some more efficiencies there. The cost of that is still going to be borne by the utility, so it's not putting any more cost on the taxpayers. It's going to be funded the exact same way it was, so it has no net operating impact. And then the solid waste fund, we often talk about enforcement and regulation. There's an alert crew in the solid waste fund that works after hours, and they used to spend a good bit more time on water and sewer service, turning water and sewer off, but now they have taken a more regulation focus. So we are no longer funding those partially through the water and sewer utility. You won't see that net impact anywhere, but it is sort of, again, an efficiency or a regulation improvement in the budget, and that's why I bring it up here. We talked about health insurance earlier. We talked about health insurance at retreat. This year,
Catch the slides up to where you're
oh
at.
gosh, thank you. This year, we talked at Budget Retreat about health insurance and how we've just had an unprecedented 30% increase in claims, and concerned that, you know, we're still going to see some increase in claims for next year. We've had our insurance consultants look at this. They're saying now that you're going to have about anticipating an additional 7.5% increase for 26. So we knew we had to really look at the plan and see what we need to do to get it back in balance, at least for 26. We've taken a couple of measures to do that. Some of you will, I'm going to start with the deductibles, okay. So our deductible right now for in-network service is $1,000, and for out-of-network is $1,500. We have raised that deductible by $500 for each class, $1,500 in-network, $2,000 out-of-network. Now, the out-of-pocket max for an individual or a family has not increased. So an individual will not pay more than $3,500 out of pocket for a medical situation, and a family will not pay more than $7,000 out of pocket for medical situations for anyone, you know, any more than one person in that family. The majority of our employees do not ever meet the deductible. Between the free service at our clinic and copays at any doctors, from a generalist to a specialist, that range from $35 to $50 at max, most of our employees use that a couple of times a year, and they would never hit the $1,000 deductible anyway. Those that do typically have more broad medical issues, and they won't be impacted by any change in that $3,500. So we felt this would not have a huge impact on our team. The next change is for ambulatory surgical centers. Now, I think it was back in the late 2000s that we implemented a plan for employees to be able to go to an ambulatory surgical center and have a knee replacement, hip replacement, a number of major surgeries done for $50 at these ambulatory surgical centers. We've looked at that, and it's really the cost is one of the cost drivers in what we've seen in this 30% increase. And we do have a benefit for employees going to the ambulatory surgical centers. However, is $50 enough? So what we've decided in conjunction with our consultant is let's take that up to $1,000. It is still a huge savings compared to going to a hospital for a surgery. If you went to a hospital for a surgery, you're likely going to pay that full $3,500 for just about any kind of surgery you hit. That $3,500 is going to hit. So there's a savings of $2,500 here still. There's still a benefit to both the employee and the city with this increase. When it comes to the $50 MRIs and scans that you can get over on 21st Avenue, that has not changed. So those will still no longer cost more than $50. The city will need to increase the amount that we pay for our employee coverage by $68.58. Let me get it where I can read it here. $65.58 per month, or $786.96 per month. That's like 7.9%. We have not increased that amount in, it's either 17, 19 maybe. So it's been a number of years. And we really had the opportunity not to make that change because COVID hit. There was a large reduction in elective surgeries, and doctors' offices just weren't open and available. And I really think that's what's driven these costs over the last couple of years at a rate that's really unprecedented, and we hope to see it stabilize. But because we put off those increases, it's really time for us to create a little bit more balance in what we're paying for our employees. Now, impact to employees. Back in 2019, we did a 7.5% increase on premiums that employees pay for their spouse, their dependents, or their entire family. We were going to implement the second tranche that was intended to be 14%, 7.5% in 19 and 7.5% in 20. But again, COVID hit. With all of the uncertainty, we did not want to put that on our employees. And then over the next few years, those claims had dropped. So there was not a need at that time to increase those premiums. We are now at a point where that need is here, and we need to increase the premiums again by 7.5%. And let me give you kind of a breakdown of what that impact is going to be on an employee's paycheck. So if you cover your spouse, you're an employee and you cover your spouse, your premium will increase by $25.19 a month. Now, what does that mean for a paycheck, the take-home paycheck? It's $12.60 a pay period, but because this is pre-tax, the employee will only see a reduction of about $9 in their take-home pay for covering a spouse. Likewise, if you cover a child or all of your children, you would see about a $5 decrease in the cash that you bring home per paycheck, a net reduction in your pay, your take-home pay of $5. And then if you cover your entire family, that per paycheck decrease would be $14.82, but would translate, because it's after tax, into about $10 less take-home pay from that paycheck. And then the final category of employees that are on our group, or I should just say folks that participants, are our retirees, our non-frozen retirees. When we analyze the cost of that group versus the premiums they pay, they were still covering their costs. So we propose no increase in the retirees, the non-frozen retirees.
Michelle, when you're saying that there is a decrease per pay period because the cost of insurance is increasing.
That is correct.
There is also an increase in pay, which will more than offset the decrease.
Absolutely.
And those will hit at the same time. So
They will.
No one's check will actually be going down.
That is right. We'll be providing this budget proposes a 5% pay increase for all employees, all full-time employees. All right, so, we mentioned at retreat that we've again reached a point of imbalance between the 4% property owner credit that is received on each 4% property owner's tax bill and the 20% of the TDF revenue that we receive annually to cover that credit. The growth in the population of 4% property owners and the increase in real estate values, which we've all seen over the past few years has just been astronomical, have led to this imbalance. Now, we have a balanced budget for FY26 with this imbalance. The budget is balanced. What we would propose is to engage a consultant, probably MuniCap. It's a company that is well-versed in this type of analysis, to look at the situation we're in, to look at future growth, both in the TDF revenue and our population of 4% owners, and provide us a plan going forward to manage these two so that that balance does not become does not remain a reoccurring thing. If you look at one of the two graphs on the bottom, I don't have the percentages there, but you can see that the total tax credit earned by our 4% property owners over the last 4 years averages about 10.7% per year, but the growth in the TDF revenue has only been about 3.3%. So I think it would really behoove us to have someone come in and look at both sides of those, someone who can predict and project out where those two different factors can come together and we can create lasting balance going forward. Now, with the projected governmental revenues and expenses, this is really just the same thing that we gave you at retreat, but I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update. The net increase after the increase in expenses, reduction in expenses, and transfers that we've talked about is about $173,000. And I always like to point out that when you remove that TDF 80% transfer to the chamber, 48.6% of total governmental expenditures are going to public safety. So I think it's safe to say that one of the big focuses on this budget, like every other budget, is always public safety. And we're always concerned about our fund balance. We want to make sure that we're fiscally responsible, that we are maintaining balances sufficient to take us through any downturns or, environmental situations that could arise, whatever might happen. So our general fund projected fund balance is still within the city's policy, with current unassigned fund balance projected to be at 23.3% of expenditures.
Say that again.
The
23.
23.3% of expenditures. And our policy really right now is 15 to 20%. I have often recommended at some point going to more of a 20 to 25%.
Why?
Because 25% would give us three months of covered expenses. When I look at the GFOA best practice, they really are 4 months, I should say. The GFOA best practices says 3 months. However, the GFOA best practices says you have to consider the nature of your community when you set that. Now, we live in a community that is susceptible to hurricanes, natural disasters. We're very fortunate that we have not had to deal with any major disruption or destruction in some time. We're also in a community that is susceptible to economic downturns, okay? So by moving closer and maintaining a 25% fund balance, that gives us the strength when it comes to borrowing from these credit agencies, number one, so that when we do have to borrow for projects, our cost is lower. The other part of it, it gives us some security so that we have working capital to manage through situations that arise and to continue operations. And third, for those that don't like debt, if you have a significant fund balance and there are economic downturns that allow you more economic opportunities to do projects at lower prices, you can take advantage of that because you have the cash flow to do it. And that's something we've had the opportunity to do in the past. So you really have three advantages by maintaining that fund balance. I do want to point out a couple of these fund balances that really do look large. So when you look at the Myrtle Beach Air Force Base TIF fund balance at $31 million, you might think that's a lot. Well, we're planning to pay off that debt in 28, 29. So we're accumulating the funds to pay off the TIF funded debt early. Plus, there's another $11 million or so in capital projects that we plan to finish or hope to finish before we pay that off, close out that tax increment fund, and then the taxes collected there go back to the taxing jurisdictions. Like the tax revenue that's collected in there on behalf of the city would now become revenue in the general fund and begin to help fund some of those services in the general fund when that TIF is closed. Now, the stormwater fund, you see $31.1 million sitting there. As most of you know, we're working on an outfall project right now. We got $30 million in proviso funds to come in and help with that. So all of that fund balance in the stormwater fund is for projects. And I say that to say, well, you know, some may say, well, why are you increasing stormwater rates 22% when you got a $30 million fund balance? That whole $30 million fund balance is obligated, and that's not even the total cost of the project. We still have so much more to do in that fund. So what we've set out to do with those rate increases is not accomplished yet wholly. Tourism-driven revenues, I think it's important, really important to talk about how much these tourism-driven revenues actually fund the operations in this city. So when I look at the total governmental operations budget, referring back to slide 3, that's $309.9 million. Included in those governmental operations revenues is $145.1 million of tourism-driven revenue. That's 46.8% of the budget. Now, the general fund, as many know, this is our main governmental service providing fund. Police, fire, our utility billing, our court systems, our public defender, public works, the streets maintenance, parks and rec, those folks that work most closely with all of our citizens. This budget's $141 million. And public safety is really a huge part of it, but here on the revenue side, I want to give you a breakdown of what the funding is. Property tax is about 26%, business license 26.4%, tourism transfers 27.3%, and other sources 20.3%. The other sources are going to be your charges for services like the fees for the recreation center or special events, those sort of things, and interest revenue. So when you look at this, only 26% of these major services that we provide to the city are actually funded through property taxes. On the expenditure side, personal services make up 74% of our budget because we are people, we are services, that's what we do. And only 24% of this budget is operating. Operating, that is the fuel to put in the trucks, the vehicles, the supplies that we buy, and the things that we need to do what we do. With capital outlay, only at 1.9%. And public safety expenditures make up 59.6% of the overall general fund budget. Every year, our folks come to us with a list of capital items that they need to continue to do their job. Most of them are replacements. Some of them are items to increase efficiency. But the total of that for this budget in the general fund is $2.7 million. Public safety makes up the bulk of that. We've got the take-home vehicle program and another number of other things, you know, the Purvis station alerting system, at our fire stations, radio replacements, that's something that we have to do. PRST is about $154,000. And those two make up the bulk of the $2.7 million that we're adding in capital this year. Outside of the general fund, the convention center, they need a golf cart replaced for their service folks, mostly the ones that are out working the parking lot or to move things around the convention center, multi-purpose. The sports tourism, I've got sports tourism fund. This is really the sports center is what this is. And they need some electrical upgrades. And in the stormwater fund, they've requested to buy a dump trailer that'll help them do a little bit more of the work in-house rather than having to contract out or rent other items to do the work. Enterprise overall, this is back when I referred to some of the changes that had no net operating effect. So there was really no change in the overall revenue expenses in the enterprise funds. And we still have strong and healthy year-end net assets in all of those. In the water and sewer fund, you can look and you see that we have net assets of 121 million. But these are enterprise funds. These are business-like funds. They are not governmental funds. So when you look at this as an enterprise fund, net assets equal the value of the fund assets in excess of the liabilities. So we're not talking about straight cash here. We're talking about looking at something that looks more like a normal business income statement or balance sheet, for that matter. So the water and sewer fund, we did have some additional capital added there. They wanted to upgrade an F-150 to an F-250 and add a dump body, and they wanted to add a mounted crane for an F-350. Now, they wanted to do this because they wanted to be able to do more work in-house. Again, increasing our efficiency. When we don't have to contract that work, not only do we save ourselves money at times, but we're able to respond more quickly, and that's the number one perk of doing this. We're able to respond to the needs of the community more quickly.
Michelle, just a question for you real quick.
Yes.
And I understand the efficiency bringing, having the ability to work in-house, the efficiencies that are created there. But you also talk about a savings. Have we actually calculated a savings? I mean, it may be zero, and it may just because it's more efficient to work in-house, but is there an actual savings?
I will ask Mr. Dan Baines if he has an answer to that.
It should be substantial. We've started doing some of them. We can do them for about 25 to 40% of the cost in most cases, just because it's only buying the materials. We're already paying the labors up front. So, I mean, for the most part, it's substantial.
Okay, so by doing this in-house, and I understand the efficiency side of it, so I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. But what you're telling us is that it also is producing a substantial savings, 25%, maybe up to all the way to 40%. That's important for everybody to understand that. Thank you.
That's a really good point, Mr. McClure, particularly in a time when the cost of construction is going up so substantially in our larger projects where we have to work with these contractors. So savings in any area like that are really helpful. Just a quick recap on capital projects. It's been a while since we've been to budget retreat. The proposed new projects that were added to the 5-year plan, not the first year, but the whole plan, were about $67 million. Projects added in the first year of the plan are $8.1 million. We talked about fire alarm upgrades and all of the different buildings, the citywide website that we're going to see coming online, the Grand Park bridges and bulkheads that need to be redone, Linear Park extension at Faro. Really excited about Savannah's Playground shade sale and resurfacing, and then the McLeod Park splash pad and renovation. And you guys can read the rest of these. We talked about them before, but we've really got a few exciting projects coming up over the next 5 years in the plan. The solid waste scale house project, and I said scale house, scale. The scale house, I think, actually was supposed to be delivered yesterday, and hopefully that one's going to be up and running and redone this week. We shall see. But with the addition of the new scale house, they're adding a second scale. Again, efficiency, so that when the trucks can come in, they can come in on one scale and be weighed, and when they come out on the second scale, and we can turn folks around a little bit more quickly. And then here is just the overall 5-year plan with a total of $315 million projects in the total of the 5 years. These do not include the A&I district projects here, simply because, you know, it's still so fluid right now. But what I wanted to present here were the projects that are in the plan and we know are going forward. The reductions here are in water and sewer, the 1.4 million for the Northwoods pump station pushed out in the first year, pushed out. And then across the project, 2 million for the oceanfront project that we're gonna spend some more time evaluating. We were asked to spend some time talking about in this plan what would be debt funded or could possibly be debt funded in the future. Those projects are the fire station number 1, police station new design and engineering that, you know, maybe 27, 28, somewhere in there, but we need to sort of begin looking at what it's gonna take to build a new fire station. We cannot do, a police station, excuse me. We cannot do that without doing some research, design, and engineering. The Grand Park bridges and bulkheads, pricey. We may have to have some debt for that. The tennis center renovations and the Mary C. weight room, if we were to do those. Now, if we go out in 27, what we would likely do would be to combine the police station and the bulkheads for Grand Park into one debt issue. So I'm not saying we're gonna go out for $1 million debt issue. The structuring, the way they're combined, that could differ, and the timing. But these are the projects right now in the plan that would require some funding outside of our pay-go ability to do those. And then with the Myrtle Beach Air Force Base projects, the fire station number 7, that is the proposed station for the future. If we were to fund that, we're going to have to issue debt. Right now, the estimate's 5.4 million. Depending on when we do that, that could change, but that's the current estimate. At the convention center, there is going to need to be some HVAC replacement in future, and that is going to be rather pricey, and some parking lot surface improvements. Now, you've heard me talk before that these are not 20-year assets here in Myrtle Beach. So if we were to debt fund these, we'd probably look at something more like a 10-year bank loan. We wouldn't plan to go out for 20 years on an asset that's not going to last 20 years. If at all possible, we'll pay cash. But if not, a shorter-term loan or note. And then, of course, as we've been talking about for a while, the baseball stadium renovations at the possibility of $14 million, depending on how lease negotiations go and how we end up on that project. For stormwater, we know we've got the landward improvements and deep ocean outfall. I've got $7 million here right now. But honestly, that really depends on federal funding that we get. We've got anticipation right now of $15 million. We're going out there for some more grants. If we don't get the funding we need, it could take longer to do the project, or we may have to issue additional debt. My only concern with doing that right now is that at the current rates where we are with stormwater, we're really at capacity. We will be due to do another rate study in about another year and look at what it might take with rates to build us the capacity to do the rest of it without additional grants. We should hopefully know late this year, early next year, whether we're going to get some of the grants that we need to do it. I say that as a caveat to my $7 million number here, that it could go up. Now with water and sewer, we know we always have a lot of projects with water and sewer. Over the next 5 years here, what we've got listed is $72 million in projects. 26, we're looking at about a $13 million debt issue, or what I should say is $13 million debt needs, and 27, 19, 350. When I go out to debt, I don't like to bond anything less than at least 2 years project. So if I come to you this in 26 with this next debt recommendation, it's probably going to be closer to the $33 million range and cover 2 years worth of projects. The Arts and Innovation District, there are 3 main projects there. And I've got them here to talk about with debt, but really what we're hoping to do is secure grants, use some hospitality funding, and have some developer participation in these projects. But I didn't want to go without including them here, and that's about $62.5 million if you're talking about a library, children's museum, and parking garages. So in summary, over the next 5 years, we could be looking at as much as $174 million in new debt, with about $48.9 million of that for 26. However, we pay down anywhere from $13 to $16 million in debt per year. And as we take on more debt, that number goes up because we're paying more in principal. So as we add more debt, it might go from 16 to 18 million in principal that we pay down each year. So we're not just incurring additional debt without retiring debt annually. And now I'm ready for your questions.
Okay, council?
Could we jump back real quick to the slides on the TDF?
Sure.
Or talk about TDF for just a minute. We're, as this slide shows, we're looking at, for 26, a projection in terms of the city's 20% share, round figures 9.2 million. There would be, on our 4% rooftops, a tax credit 10.4.
Yes.
So we're looking at being in the red at about 1.2.
That is correct.
But we have a balanced budget, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it seems to bill category, I don't see our 20% increasing dramatically. I think it is kind of leveled out. That would be the reason for the study then?
Yes, sir.
So we can look at what a reasonable balance is going to be in the future?
That is correct.
Because, you know, our residents are going to see this as a net tax increase. That's what the numbers show them now.
That's absolutely right, and that's why we're cognizant of that, and why we want to look at this from all angles, from both what's the possibility of the revenue growth, what's the possibility of the residential growth, and come up with something that we can point to and maybe even, you know, inform them over the next few years. This is where we think the credit's going to fall, so that not in any given year, it is not a surprise. It is an anticipated change in that credit level, and that we have something that is taking into account, you know, both the economy, the real estate values, the number of folks moving here, and the possible, you know, growth in that TDF.
I think Greg has said it a couple of times that you have a pie.
Mm-hmm.
And that pie isn't changing but the number of people eating the pie has changed dramatically. So clearly, there's going to have to be some adjustment.
And we have tried to continue to give everyone the same amount of pie,
And we're out of
but
pie.
that's gonna, yes, there are gonna have to be some major changes coming down the pipe.
There are.
It's an adjustment in that credit, which we still, I mean, as a community, that credit is a tremendous benefit of living here.
Absolutely.
And even with a change in that credit, it's still a huge benefit.
Yes.
And we'll still be at one of the lowest millage rates.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Michelle, how long does it usually typically take Unicap or someone like them to do a study like this?
I'm not completely sure, but I feel fairly confident that by the time we come together in January and begin to talk about the formation of that next budget, that we'll be prepared to give a comprehensive presentation and have a plan to begin to, going forward, balance this, with a good, solid analysis behind it. That we can communicate, effectively to our taxpayers and give them some ideas of what to expect.
Okay, and one more question, going back to the general fund balance. You said we're at 23% now. You said we may need to go up to 25%. And let's just say in the last 10 years, how many times have we had to use that fund?
Fund balance? Mm-hmm. We haven't. Well, I don't know about 10 years, but I know in the last 5 years.
Maybe use some in COVID?
We with the
ARPA?
ARPA money, we were not in the general fund.
We may have used some in Florence and Matthew.
You end up getting it back slowly
I had a,
over the next
Still
yeah.
receiving money.
still
5 to
receiving
10
payments from
years.
that.
We're still
From
receiving
FEMA?
FEMA money from
We
those storms.
are.
I picked up on a couple of things that you said. One regarding the fund balance in the air base.
Bless you.
You said that we had a healthy fund balance in the air base, and we were paying off bonds early. Is that correct?
That is right. We will pay the bonds off early. As the way that the TIP is structured, you're supposed to finish the projects. And once your projects are finished, then you get with your RDA, discuss with them, and get the permission, if you will, to close out that airbase, and then you will pay your bonds off.
Okay, and once that is closed out, where does the future tax revenue from that area go?
So the Horry County schools will go to the schools. Horry County will go to Horry County, and our City of Myrtle Beach millage will actually now become back into the general fund and the debt service fund. Because the total, right now, the 83.4 mils is collected and retained in that fund solely to pay for capital projects and debt service. When the closure of the base happens, or the TIF happens, our 77.4 mils will come into the general fund, and the 6 mils will go to the debt service fund.
All right, and you mentioned the tourism funds pay 46.8% of our general fund budget.
I think that's of the overall governmental operations, and that would include your, special revenue funds, your convention center, sports tourism, all of those others. So of the revenues that are generated through that, 46.8% are tourism development revenues.
And those tourism development revenues are monies that our residents do not have to pay in property taxes.
Correct. They do not have to pay property taxes to cover the services that are rendered. For example, $19 million worth of hospitality taxes and fees come into the general fund just to cover operations and capital related to tourism. And that doesn't, I don't know the accommodations tax number right off the top of my head, but it's somewhere between 9 and 12 million itself. Were we not to have those revenues available to put in the general fund, that would be on the taxpayers.
That's what I was trying to point out.
And that's another savings we're not necessarily seeing on our tax bill, but
Correct.
it translates to,
I mean, tourism does cost money, but it also brings back money.
And we need to communicate that.
Yeah.
It's important that people understand it.
But going back to the Air Force Base and the Air Force TIF, so, just so I think I understand or help clarify my thinking is a better way to put it. So as this gets paid off, right? Councilman Smith, asked the question, what happens to the revenue then? Where's that money? And you mentioned the county and the schools, but what percentage of that do they get? Is
They
it,
get the bulk of it. I think we're like 22%, somewhere like that, of the millage, because overall, it's like 256 mills, but with the county, the schools, and us. The
Right,
county's
so- but
200 something, or
our percentage, round figures would be, $1 million, $10 million? What,
no, I'm thinking more around 7 million.
7 million?
Now, we do get some that comes into the general fund each year, probably to the tune of about 3 million between the base value that's transferred over and the surplus declaration each year. So you're probably talking about another $3 million in the general fund.
Okay, but that's $3 million that we can dedicate to these other projects.
Absolutely,
Okay, so we.
for whatever the needs are at any
We're
given
going to
time.
have this additional source of funding in the relative close future, right? The one thing, though, in the Air Force Base TIF that I thought that I read, and again, help clarify my thinking on this, is one of the, I'm not sure if they were going to build a new garage in the Market Common area or they were going to add a floor on the garage.
It's my understanding there's really not a need for that. There are only 2 times a year when the parking is actually at capacity. And what we have at Market Common is not a parking problem, it's a walking problem. What we are currently doing right now at the Market Common is repairing those garages. And that is the project's ongoing. And what I would like to say, when you talk about that $3 million coming back into the general fund, in the years since the Market Common has been open and operating, with every dime, with the exception of maybe for a while, 1.9 million coming to the general fund, every dime of that money has gone to projects and debt service, which means that money for policing, public works, stormwater, our crews that go out there, our parks crews, and all of the employees that we have that work out there on a daily basis in the maintenance to cut the grass and all, has been supplemented by the taxes in the general fund. The Market Common property taxes have not paid for that because they've been paying for infrastructure. Now, at least with that money going into the general fund, they are now covering what the property taxes from the rest of the city have been supplanting while they've become a vibrant community.
One more thing about the public safety budget. This budget calls for an $82 million public safety budget. Is that correct?
Sounds right?
Sounds right.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but that really does sound,
Do you remember off the top of your head what the public safety budget was in 2019?
no, I do not, but it was
If I said-
substantially less.
If I said 49.4, would you say that I was
No.
like, would,
No, because of the number, we have added, I want to say almost, maybe, started in 17, maybe 50 officers in that time, not to mention the equipment, the take-home car program, the upgrades in radio systems, everything that we've done. No, it would not surprise me.
yeah, so the public safety budget has increased in the city of Myrtle Beach $33 million in the last 6 years.
Absolutely, and that's been an intentional effort to do that.
Right. That's it.
Any other questions?
Where can we buy tickets to the Myrtle Beach Classic again?
Visit myrtlebeach.com.
MyrtleBeachClassic.com.
MyrtleBeachClassic.com, okay.
The next step, Michelle, you just highlight the next steps. We got the public hearing and anticipated first reading.
That's right. So I have a public hearing scheduled for May 27th. That'll happen at the very beginning of that council meeting. And then I'll do this whole thing again, but no. I'll give you a brief summary of the highlights of the budget and present the budget ordinance for first reading.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
All right, we do have an executive session item today, and while we are in executive session, the live stream will end because we do need that equipment for the executive session. So I will ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss negotiations concerning contractual arrangements involving the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. We will invite Fox Simons, Will Bryan, Brian Tucker, Josh Bruger, Michelle Schumpert, Marla Bell, Meredith Denori, Amy Newshafer, and Bill Musser. May I please have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
We'll take a 10-minute break. Dr. Connor made the motion. Mr. Chestnut made the second. Yes, ma'am. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.